Welcome back to the Metal Exchange. Justin and Chris back again, here joined by the infamous Zorn from Zornheim. Thank you so much today for joining us. How are you, my friend?
I'm doing very well here. Thank you very much.
And Chris, how are you, my bud?
Doing well. Looking forward to having this conversation with Zorn about the Zornheim Sleep Experiment, which I got to listen to for the first time this last week from start to finish, and it was a really cool experience with the comic book and all the notes, the notes with all like the doctor's notes and everything. I just thought it was such a full experience that you don't always get with these kind of albums that are story albums, and having these kind of like visual and cues, and being able to really see what music doesn't always have a kind of a vision part of it, and now there's a way to kind of see what's going on. And I had mentioned in the previous episode how cool it would have been if we had a Operation Mindcrime comic book or a Mercy Falls comic book or something like that to like really visualize this wild story. So really just a cool experience, and I'm glad that we get to talk to one of the creators to really give some firsthand insight in how all of this was put together.
Yeah, and so to that end, I guess we'll start from the beginning. The band formed, I guess, about 10 years ago. Did you ever envision doing a project like the Sleep Experiment, which was this, radical concept album in many ways?
Yeah, I mean, the idea from the beginning was to do a concept album and then to stay in the same universe. That was like the idea from day one, because I've always enjoyed concept albums by King Diamond, or like you said, Queensryche with Operation Mindcrime. But everyone, they tend to write a really cool concept album and then they move along to the next project. And I've always thought about how would it be if you stay in the same realm, in the same world, and discover what's really going on in there. And that was kind of the plan from day one. And when I started doing like research and stuff like that for the first album, I watched tons of documentaries about serial killers. I read different urban legends and took inspiration from folk tales. And as soon as I found something that was like, yeah, this would totally work in our asylum universe, then I saved it on my laptop. And when it was time to write the first album, I kind of decided that would serve as like a pilot episode that just introduces a bunch of different inmates that are confined within the walls of the asylum, basically. And I stumbled across this folk tale from England. I think it was about a guy called Edward Mordrake that was born with an evil twin that was like attached to the back of his head, and that became like the starting point of the whole first album. And I wrote the lyrics to the first song on the album called "The Opposed." And I basically took that story in and then wrote it in a fashion that it would work in the Zornheim universe, and how this nobleman was locked away from his family, and he was more and more becoming insane, and to kind of steer out the voices from his head, he played the cello. So that song is like based around this cello theme, and so there's always so many details in our music with stuff like that.
Did you always have an interest in the occult and sci-fi and that sort of world before you started looking for thematic, visions of what the project would be, or was it something you got into around this time?
When I was thinking about the different concepts, I've always had like this idea that I wanted to do a concept about an asylum, because that kind of intrigued me, and that the album would, each song would jump between different inmates and stuff like that. So yeah, that was an idea that I had since my mid-20s or something like that, and I've never really had a cinematic kind of feeling of a band where I feel that it would have been appropriate to do it. But like 10 years ago, I had just parted ways with Dark Funeral, and I felt like it's time to do something new, and I was really tired of the whole satanic part of the thing, because I've been in a orcish armor for the past couple of years doing that. So I felt like I want to explore the evil ways of humans more than a fictional being.
That makes perfect sense. And as you kind of, start this project, what were your musical influences at the time that was kind of driving the music? And I asked the question because as I really did my deep dive along with Chris this week, I noticed that you were, at least in my opinion, touching on various metal genres and folk genres and just different pieces of things, that it wasn't like that I could box you into one genre. It was very difficult to kind of say, this is a band that is melodic death metal or black metal, or in other words, pinpointing you was a little, and it was interesting because it was this blend of so many different things. What were you listening to at the time, and I guess even today, that kind of shapes the music that you write?
I mean, I think basically it's my whole record collection going into this huge blender. So there's like bands like Dissection is obviously inspiration, but also bands like Blind Guardian. That's like one of my favorite bands of all time. Yngwie Malmsteen is a huge influence. Halloween, Iron Maiden, of course, but there's so many things. Also, bands like Dismember, and At the Gates when it comes to the melodic death metal part. But there's a lot of bands that has been going through the blender that we've been using, and then sprinkled everything with our own twist on things, basically. And of course, a lot of classical composers and score composers like Hans Zimmer and stuff like that. So there's a lot of stuff going in. And then the other guys, even though I'm the main composer, they contribute with their stuff, and they have different influences. And I think that's something that's make it sound really special, that we together enhance my ideas.
One of the things I was mentioning to Justin in the previous episode was that, I typically am not a big fan of more, extreme metal, but I think that by blending the other influences like power metal and symphonic metal and everything, it makes this such for me, an enjoyable experience, and like it kind of softens the extreme stuff that like, whereas like if I were to listen to a Dissection record where it's just very heavy and extreme all the way through, for me it wouldn't be as enjoyable as listening to Zornheim, where there's all of these different mixtures of things that I gravitate more towards, and it kind of makes it more palatable for me, and so I really appreciate all of those kind of genres coming together and making this really unique sound.
Yeah, and that's also a thing that we've been trying to do. That when we were talking about doing this concept, making music for mentally unstable people, then you could, just have weird noises and people screaming, and that would probably mirror the story the best. But instead, we kind of focused on the grand personalities, how they are seeing themselves as these divine human beings that are walking among us, looking down on everyone else. So we're more gravitating towards the majestic side of the human psychics, more like that, when we are portraying the music, and that's why it sounds very epic and majestic. And we're also using a lot of real instruments. We have people playing strings, and we have like real choirs singing, and that's something that we work very hard on to to make it sound authentic, and I think that gives it an extra notch when you do that.
I think it resonates with me, and I think what you just touched upon is interesting. As you know, after the first album, Where Hatred Dwells and Darkness Reigns, come out in 2017, we hit COVID in 2020. People can't tour. You can't be out, at least for that, in that first period. So I would assume that a lot of the writing process for the Zornheim Sleep Experiment kind of comes to fruition around 2020 and right after COVID and all that stuff. But I say that because despite a lot of bands focusing on writing albums during that period, the production here is top notch. And one of the things that really stood out to me, whether it was the vocal choirs, the ambient sound effects that are going through the listener especially when you're listening with headphones, I think it really stands out. It was mixed and mastered and produced just exceptionally well. Given the budgetary constraints that most artists are facing, how were you able to get such a rich sound given the limited, resources that might have been available?
The thing is that we haven't half-assed on anything. We haven't really. The choirs for the first two albums, Skugga, the other guitar player, he recorded them, but everything else is recorded at Wing Studios here in Stockholm. And a lot of the other musicians that are doing it, they are usually getting hooked in, and that's something that I've noticed when we have other people in the room together with us, that they usually get very carried away. So all of a sudden they start doing extra for us, and because they see how much this mean to us and how dedicated we are and enthusiastic we are with everything. But we have invested a lot of money, and Yeah, and that's a reason why we recently started a Patreon as well. I think I even wrote to Chris about that when we were about to start it, because we, just like many other bands, that we don't get the full support from labels that you used to do. So
Yeah, it's so different, but I feel like a lot of artists such as yourself. I mean, our podcast has a Patreon, as you know, and again, thank you for the generous contributions that we were able to give out to our, some of our Patreons. So thank you for that. But I say that with the understanding that the music industry is changing
yeah,
and has been changing for many years. People, when they want to hear something, they go on Spotify, and the artist gets, a fraction of what the company like Spotify is getting for each of those clicks. How has that impacted either the writing process, your ability to tour, just as a musician in general? How has the changing industry affected you?
I mean, we kind of noticed a difference after the COVID pandemic, that it's even harder for bands of our size to tour and to do it and actually get decent paid, because usually band promoters are like, yeah, but we can get a band for half the price, a local band to do it, and we don't really care as long as there's someone playing on the stage. So that has really changed, but I've also noticed that people are more appreciative when we're out playing, and they do actually, even though everyone seems to be suffering right now because of the economical situation in the world, but people are really coming up and they are really trying to support by getting stuff and just stopping to express how cool they thought the show was or something like that. But yeah, in general, when you're as ambitious as we are, it's not becoming easier, and that's why I took the decision that yeah, we need to try this Patreon thing and see if we can actually do it together with our audience and get like better budget for things.
I think that's like Justin said, that's kind of the way things are headed, and I
Yeah.
think that's great, because I think that the artists deserve to have the money funneled directly to them to use, to their, to the way they want to use it, and to make the product as best as humanly possible. So I love that. I think it's cool, and I think it also makes the fans feel like they're more involved and more connected to the project. So I think it's a win for everybody involved.
Yeah, and I mean, I've invested a lot of, like everyone has in this band. We have invested a lot in the band by our own funds and stuff like that, because at the end of the day, when we have done an album, it's something that is going to stay with us for the rest of our lives. And if it's something that I've learned so far in my musical career, is that don't half-ass something that's going to be with you until the end of your days. It's better to put in those extra few $100 or whatever it is, just to get it the way you want to have it.
Oh, sorry, go ahead, please.
It's always worth it in the end.
I liken it to one's reputation, which is you build up your reputation in life, right, over time.
Yeah.
and then you make one bad decision or you do something wrong and you can't get that reputation back. And I guess it's the same thing for an artist, where if you cut a corner or you half-ass something, it's hard to rebound from that and see people for your body of work, because they focus on the one decision where you kind of, that kind of a thing. So as we get into the writing process for the Zornheim Sleep Experiment, tell me what went into how long were you working on the concept for the second record, and tell me a little bit about the thought process about like really getting into the fact that now the doctors are now performing this experiment with the folks that are locked away. I mean, Chris and I spoke a little bit about the story itself and walk the listeners through what they can expect without spoiling anything. But at the same time, as you're kind of coming up with the concept, what made you realize that it was time for these experiments to start taking place?
Actually, when on the Where Hatred Dwells and Darkness Reigns, there's a song called Whom the Night Brings. And that's about an inmate that suffers from sleep paralysis. And when Dr. Beetlehame is interviewing her, he starts wondering if there can be something else going on with her. Because she's claiming that there's this night demons, the incubi, coming to her at night, and she's been trying to taking different works in churches to try and get the demons to stay away and stuff like that, and eventually she commits herself to Zornheim, and he starts interviewing her, and he gets so interested, so he starts thinking, analyzing, why is the human being forced to sleep like 1/3 after life's away? Is it because the body needs to rebuild itself during nighttime, or is there something more profound going on there? So he hires this other doctor called Gutzman, and they together figure out a way how to make people stay awake. And the funny thing is that we are already hinting about the second album on the first album's graphic novel, because we also did a graphic novel together with the first album. So the whole cover art for the first album is actually Dr. Beetlehame taking the last inmate to the sleep experiment.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so there's like tons of small Easter eggs, and that whole graphic novel ends with like, you're going to participate in the Zornheim Sleep Experiment. So yeah, now I think I lost my train of thought.
Oh no, I think it's fascinating because as I really what I was saying to Chris when we recorded last time was that I miss being able to do these deep dives into albums. And I'm the first one to say I consume a lot of music. I enjoy what I enjoy, but I'll check out almost anything. But it was so nice to go back and really kind of do something that I haven't done in probably 20 years, which is focus heavily on thematic visions and story and whatnot. And I have to say that the comic book that kind of goes along, and I have not read the first one, but I'm going to go back and pick it up. But just seeing the Sleep Experiment comic book that goes along with it, it added such a layer for me, because it enabled me to really immerse myself in the universe that you created. What was the idea for the comic book, and what role did you have in its creation?
the idea for we usually see Zornheim's music like three different layers. Like we write music so you can enjoy music if you're into cool music, and then we also have like a second layer for all the old school people who love concepts and dive into the album's booklet, and there we leave like. On the first album, we did like Doctor's Note, and on this, the Zornheim Sleep Experiment, we have like a session notes that they are writing when the sleep experiment is in different phases. And then we felt that we are not fully telling the story with these two elements, so we need a third element here. And when I was putting together the first album, I came across this super talented artist from Finland called Anna Saari. Her art page is called Art by Saari, and I just wrote to her because she had done these really cool King Diamond sketches, so I understood that we're going to speak the same language. And I approached her and said that, you know, I love your art, and I would want to work with you somehow. And she told me that she had this dream of making a graphic novel. So I said, great, I have this killer concept that would work so well in a graphic novel, and we would need like a third way to tell the stories. So we decided to for at least for the first two albums to make graphic novels that are going together with the album, so you are able to sit down and listen to the album and follow along in the lyrics, and then also check out the graphic novel as the story progresses. And I think that's all the keys that we can give to the listener to fully grasp the story and to really enjoy what we are trying to tell. Basically,
you're basically hitting all the senses,
yeah,
because you have the audio, obviously the hearing element, but you also have the visual element, and even the touch in many ways, which is so different than, you know, what we've been doing for the last 20 years with digital media and whatnot. So I appreciate that, you know, a lot. When you were sitting down and actually writing the songs themselves for the sleep experiment, what was did you start with the lyrics, or did you actually start with the music and then kind of put the story on top of the music that you had penned?
I knew the story from start to finish first, and I've always written pretty dramatic music, so I always know that the music that I'm gonna write is going to work with the lyrics, and then I kind of along the way I'm discovering, this song should be about this part of the story, and once we know which part is going to be, then that's going to decide how Bender is going to sing. Because like we were speaking about the different influences earlier on, is that since we have all these music styles in our music style, I think that when we are grinding and he's screaming, that becomes like one end of the whole concept, and then we can have like really soft stuff going on with acoustic guitars as well, and then the dynamics of everything becomes very wide, and that really helps with the storytelling. Like for instance, on Keep the Devil Away, there's like this pleading. The chorus is a whole plead, and the first time it's sung, it's extremely light produced, and he's almost whispering the lyrics.
I was surprised at how many different styles Bendler was able to sing, and have it be one cohesive piece of music as an album. And I say that because a lot of I think the best bands can blend those genres seamlessly, and I think you guys do a great job of that. There's other bands that try to do it, and it's a little bit jarring to the listener, where you're taken back because it seems like it's almost forced together as opposed to just one seamless unit, which is what I think you were able to capture on these albums.
Oh, cool. Thank you very much.
Yeah, and so when everything is finally recorded and ready to go, were there any tracks in particular that stood out to you as like not just key drivers for the story? I think that's pretty clear once you immerse yourself, but just songs that you said we've got something here with this. This is what I'm really trying to capture. Were there any standout tracks for you?
On the Zornheim Sleep Experiment, I would say that I really I got really happy with Keep the Devil Away, Corpus Vile, especially like the grand finale of that song, because that was like a really tricky song to do, because we had decided that actually that song starts the way that the first album ends. So the first album ends with this acoustic guitar, and that's the guitar riff that's played on the in the beginning. And then we decided that we would do this grand finale of that song where Bendler would sing, and that's like written in E minor. And E minor, when you're playing on guitar, has a lot of open strings. And then I asked Bendler, like, you're the singer, so you need to tell me which key I should play in. And then he's like, C. And I'm like, no, fuck. This is not going to work. Because C on a guitar, then there's like no open strings. So right. I think I sat for like one whole weekend to try and arrange it so it would work out for the key change, and it was such a hard job, but it really became like my favorite section on the whole album almost, because I think Bender is doing like a great job, and then also Skuka added some great ideas from my orchestral mock-ups, and he did some really crazy string arrangement there, and it all just blended very, very cool. And it's that's a song that we are usually opening the sets with now when we are touring, because it's the latest album. And also Slumber Comes in Time is also a track that's been working well. It turned out very good. It's actually based around an old folk melody from the city where I grew up. The Valones brought it there, and then they did their own touch of it. So the folk elements on that resonated very clearly. I mean, we each pick our track of the week, and this was Chris's, and I noted, cool. I said, I could tell that this was going to be something he liked. It almost reminded me of fellow Swedish band Falconer with their folky, again, not that it was a straight up power metal song like that, but the folk elements that they included remind me of Slumber, so I saw like a little synergy there. Cool.
Yeah, that was I think that was the first track that you had sent to me and said, give us a listen, see if you like it. And that always stuck with me. Even after listening to the whole album, it was still my favorite after hearing everything. I just think it's such a brilliant tune. So, good stuff.
Especially the guitar solo there is very inspired by Halloween and Rhapsody. So I think
And those are two of my favorite bands. So
Yeah.
that makes sense.
So, I know that you have a number of tour dates coming up, some festivals, I think, over in Sweden.
Yeah.
Did you get a chance to tour this album? I mean, I know we spoke a little earlier about the difficulty of doing these monster tours across the globe, but did you have a chance to play some of this stuff live? And obviously you will be later this summer. And how do the songs kind of lend themselves to a live show so people can see you?
We've actually done quite a lot of touring. We've played especially in France and Germany, but also in the UK and Belgium and Holland and a bunch of different countries like Denmark, and then we're going back to Denmark this fall as well. Something that we've noticed is that I think the Zornheim Sleep Experiment, I think it's the songs are catchier than on the first album, because like when we play songs like Keep the Devil Away, usually by the end of the song, people are singing with us, even though they've never heard us before. And
that's great.
And that's like a good receipt to get that, okay, this song really works.
That's great. And so I'd be remiss. Well, I guess let me say this before we begin to look ahead at what the future holds for the band. Any other kind of thoughts on the album itself? I mean, it came out in 2021, but as you look back, I have to say, Chris and I were mentioning how we see that there's so many different ways that the story can go from here. Now, I'm not, I leave it to the creator and mastermind yourself, but like we could see this going in so many different directions depending on, do you focus on the doctors, the inmates themselves that are still, around after what happens and whatnot. But did you have closure at this point, or is this just the continuation of a longer story for you?
It's there's going to be more stories for sure.
Nice.
The idea is that all our albums is going to take place in this asylum, and on the third album we're actually going to do some sort of a prequel where we go back and discover like the origin of everything.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think that much like any story, and music aside, but much like any story, those details and that background will be a real positive experience for the listener who's kind of immersing themselves in this world. So that sounds fantastic. You've obviously now alluded to a third album. Is that something that's in the works?
Yeah, we've recorded like all rock instruments for the third album. We started recording it 6 months ago, roughly. And now all the guitars, drums, bass, lead guitars, acoustic guitars, effect guitars, and clean guitars are recorded. So we've taken a little bit of a break now to work on something else that we're gonna let everyone know more about next month. That's been taking up a lot of time for us lately, but as soon as that cat is out of the bag, we're gonna continue the relentless work, and what we have left is to start recording the vocals, finalize the orchestral arrangements, and then get the string and choir people in. And that's usually the part that takes the most time, because that's not completely up to us to decide everything.
once you start having to rely on other people
Yeah.
for schedules, that's when things get complicated.
Yeah.
Is it fair to say that this is looking like a 2025 release or thereabouts? Or no pressure. I'm just trying to ballpark it.
Yeah, it's starting to look like that. I actually talked to the label and our booker this morning, and I said that we should probably set a release date so we feel the power of the release date breathing fire up our backs. so
I think that makes sense. And nowadays it's we talk about the changing music industry, but it's gone are the days where an album is recorded, mastered, and then out within a month. Those days are over, and obviously there's a lot of promotion that goes into it. And so just kind of reading the tea leaves, I assume that it's going to take a little bit of time for the finished product to come together.
Yeah, usually the label wants to have like a proper 2 to 3 months to do proper promotion, and then we need time to record a music video. We've just started working with a new video director that shows a lot of potential to us, and we can't wait to see what he can do for the next music video that we're going to do for the next album that's so far yet untitled. We just call it Zornheim 3.
There you go.
Would you say that you're gonna plan on having another graphic novel produced for this next album and try to keep that tradition going that you did for the first 2 albums?
I don't think that there's going to be another graphic novel, but there will be something else graphical. I have another really cool idea. I just need to be able to sit down and focus. I actually want to have something graphical that's going to tell like the prologue to the whole album. And if I can get it the way that I want it, it's going to be very, very, very cool. And I'm hoping the label, they are usually very supportive, and they like my crazy ideas. So I hope that's something that's been really good with Noble Demon, that they think they really believe in doing extra stuff instead of cutting corners.
Right. Well, I mean, it feels like the band's like calling card at this point is having a visual aspect to complement the audio part of it. So I feel like that really, I think that makes the band stand out, compared to other bands. So I think that's a really cool thing. And I had said to Justin, like, I listened to the album a couple of times, and then I sat down and I started reading the lyrics and the notes and the graphic novel, and it changes the whole perspective of how you listen to the song, because you have in your mind like this dank, laboratory, and this prison, so to speak, where these subjects are locked up, and it almost it feels darker as you're listening to it, because you understand like what is happening. And I think that adds so much to not only the experience, but I think that the listener has a much better idea of what the creator is trying to create. And it's like we have a much better idea of what your vision is for the story. And so it's because a lot of times all you have is a booklet with lyrics in it, and it's up to you to kind of decipher what it is the artist is trying to say. And in this way, like, I feel like it really helps the listener connect to the artist and what the artist's intent is.
Yeah.
So I guess, is there anything else that fans can kind of expect as we move and forge ahead with this third album? Or Is there anything else that you're working on in the meantime as well as a side project, or anything else that you want kind of the listeners to know is before we let you go?
If people are interested in hearing small parts from the third album, I've actually started putting together a studio documentary that I'm posting on Patreon every month. There you can follow closely with the recording process and everything that's going on behind there. And that's, our way to show people that are willing to support us by Patreon that, there are, even though we're not posting stuff every day on social media, there's progress and there's a lot of things going on. But our music, since there's so many different layers, both in the music but also in the storytelling, it takes a lot of time. I mean, we write the graphic novel ourselves. We work together with the different artists. It's almost like Zornheim could be like this big group of different artists. It's always important for us, like Anu, she's almost like a band member, and the people that we've been working with together with the music videos, they become really close to us because they help us bring the visual aspect of the stories alive. And make sure to check our social media next month, because there's going to be something really, really cool coming.
We will put your socials below so that people can check that out next month when they, kind of hear the episode and then follow you guys from there. So that's great. Zorn, I want to thank you so much for joining us on the Metal Exchange today. We appreciate it and wish you nothing but the best of luck in the future with album number 3, to be determined the title, but we look forward to seeing it when it comes to fruition.
And I hope I can come back on and we can have another conversation then.
Yeah, that would be great. When the album comes out, maybe we'll once we've had a time to do our deep dive and read through all the materials, we'll certainly have you back so that people can hear more about the story and where it's going with act number 3.
Oh, awesome. Looking forward to it.
Awesome. Have a wonderful day, my man. Be well.
You too.
Thanks, Zorn.
Thank you.